Greetings, everyone. How are you today? Happy Friday. Greetings. Welcome to the People's Power Lunch for this day, Friday, July 8th. Welcome to Lukman Nation, the most dangerous show on social media, on some of you watching on Black Power Media, the most dangerous platform on social media. Thank you so much for joining me. Apologies for being a few minutes late. My walk got started a little late, my midday walk. I tried to do a brisk walk in the afternoon for my health. Got started a little late today, so I got back a little late and I was cutting it real close, but I wanted to make sure I got back in time to have lunch with you all. I see you have already come into the lunchroom. Alex Thoreau, Leah Boggs, Cynthia Rose, 40J Blaze, Ready Revolutionary, My Written Voice, Kamari Dreamchild, Elgin Bailey, Deborah Rodriguez, Afraid Not, Ricky Ryan, Pamela Jones, Manny Nile, welcome. Grab your lunch. Ricky got some curry shark roti. Shark? Like like the shark? Or is that the chain restaurant shark? I'm confused. I'm down with curry, but I'm not so sure about shark. But okay. You all, Dev S, what's going on? KD Peace. Uh Look, I hope you all are having a good lunch. Taste, see, you're not late. Come on in. I hope you all have a good lunch to hang out with as we talk about some international issues that have been quite interesting happening over the past few weeks. This week hasn't even been several weeks, it's been 1 week. Sith Lord Prince, what's going on? In Cincinnati, Ohio. Good to see you, Sean M. What up, indeed? All right, so first off, I want to make sure that you folks are aware that unless you have not heard, Derek Chauvin has been charged in federal court now with let me see, let me get it right, he's been charged in a plea deal for manslaughter. Now, this is in federal court. Let me share the article so you may see it. Just charged in federal court, sentenced to 21 years in federal prison for violating George Floyd's civil rights. Um, I think the important aspects of this news is that Chauvin entered a plea of guilty, and this was the deal that he got 21 years for his guilty plea. So, in pleading guilty, um, Chauvin, for the first time, publicly admitted that yes, he did keep his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes, even after George Floyd became unresponsive, which resulted in his death. Chauvin admitted that he willfully deprived George Floyd of his right to be free from unreasonable seizure, including unreasonable force by a police officer. And he had to make these admissions as a part of pleading guilty to the charge of violating George Floyd's civil rights, to which he was sentenced for 21 years in prison. But here's the thing. Um, I think it's worth noting that Chauvin didn't apologize for his actions. And I mean, on the one hand, it's like, who gives a damn that he didn't apologize? Fuck him. On the other hand, instead of apologizing, this man was allowed to speak to George Floyd's children who were in the courtroom. And this motherfucker said to those children, the children of the man that he murdered, that he wished them all the best in their lives. And they have excellent guidance in becoming good adults. That is what Derek Chauvin said in court to George Floyd's children when he was entering his plea. And I don't know about y'all, but I get that, we're all afforded due process, and everybody, the law is supposed to be applied to everyone equally, and people are supposed to have their say in court and blah blah blah. But I'd be damned if the man who killed my daddy is going to get away with a slick ass dig like that to me in court, because I really do think that Derek Chauvin's comments to George Floyd's children was a dig. I think I am taking it as an insult because, like I said, he didn't apologize. He showed no remorse for taking George Floyd's life, even though Chauvin's attorney said in his petition to the court that Chauvin, his remorse will be made apparent to the court. Well, it wasn't. His remorse was not made apparent to the court. He never apologized. He didn't show remorse for what he did. As a matter of fact, the same attorney is appealing the murder sentence that Chauvin was found guilty for in state court. They're appealing the murder conviction, and their argument is that jurors were intimidated by the protests following George Floyd's public lynching committed by Derek Chauvin and those three other cops, and that those protests prejudiced the jury heavily with the pretrial publicity. So, as Derek Chauvin is sitting in or standing, I guess, in a courtroom, insulting the children of the man that he murdered, his attorney is simultaneously appealing the state's murder conviction on the grounds that the protests that we engaged in the uprising against racist police terrorism spurred by his public lynching of George Floyd, those protests unduly influenced the jury. And get out of here. Thank you, Ready Revolutionary. I get all the way the fuck out of here with that nonsense. So I just wanted to let you know that that has happened. Derek Chauvin will serve the 21 and 22 and a half years concurrently. The state and federal sentences, he'll serve it in federal prison, and the 22 and a half year sentence will take precedence. So, yeah, Derek Chauvin in prison. And the trials for the other cops, I think, are upcoming, just to put that on your radar. But I just thought that was just, ooh, prayers and, for peace, strength, and support George Floyd's family and his children, because I cannot imagine the hell they are going through already with everything that has happened, and then to have to sit in that courtroom and hear that piece of shit say that to those children. Woo, when I tell y'all I'm not that saved, when I tell y'all I'm not that saved, Lord have mercy. Anyway, okay, so that's that news. um, Today, just a little while ago, I think the decrepit one may have stopped talking. Joe Biden has signed an executive order that will do something to protect women's reproductive rights. He had a press conference just as I was tying up my tennis shoes and walking out the door for my walk. Oh, no. Yep, here it is. No, I have not reached my free article limit, you liars. So let me sign in so I can get you this article. Here we go. do. See what I have to do? See what I have to go through to get the news to you all. It is my pleasure and my joy, though, actually. So yeah, today Joseph Biden had a little press conference where they pumped him up full of reanimation juice and trotted him out in front of the cameras with a little script, and where he signed this executive order to provide some kind of federal protection for women's reproductive rights. He makes a big old speech about all the Supreme Court is out of control, and saying that was an exercise of raw political power, and raw political power that he's supposed to be able to counter, and honestly should have been prepared to counter with this executive order 30 days ago when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And honestly, for real, y'all, can we be honest in admitting that Joe Biden and the White House should have had this executive order, and a lot more than this executive order, in place when the decision was leaked months ago? Months ago. But no, no, 30 days, we waited a month. Um, and what does the executive order do? Let's see. It um, directs the Health and Human Services Department to take action to protect and expand access to medication abortion that's already approved by the Food and Drug Administration. It directs the HHS to ensure that women have access to emergency medical care, family planning services, contraception, including IUDs. There will be a provision for free attorneys and other organizations to provide legal counsel for patients seeking an abortion, as well as for abortion providers. To me, this feels like, sounds like, seems like it is absolutely not enough. Um, and Mani, I did not see Kamala Harris's interview after Roe versus Wade was overturned. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. It pains me. My synapses revolt when I watch Kamala Harris speak, but I will do it. I will do it. In the name of journalistic prudence, I will do it just to see what cockamamie word salad she came up with. She's, you know, as an aside, as a quick aside, public speaking is not for everybody. Everybody can't get on the mic and drop coherent thoughts at the drop of everybody can't do that. And believe it or not, I actually don't do it. I this is probably the most unscripted talking I do during the week, because on By Any Means Necessary we have a script, and yes, we come up with the questions that we ask our guests ourselves, but we do have a script that we go by. So okay, I get that public speaking is not for everybody, but see, Kamala Harris is never without a script. She has speech writers, y'all. And so does Joe Biden. They have people who write words for them to say. And she still cannot say them with any kind of, she and Joe Biden still can't say them without any kind of intellectual clarity, or honestly emotional sincerity. Nobody in the world believes these people are saying that. Nobody believes they believe any of the things they're saying. We know that. Just these people are barely able to read words that are written down for them in a way that is convincing. She's terrible, but and so is Biden. But okay, I'm going to listen to her, yet another one of her crazy word salads. Because I love you. Um, so yeah, so the executive order that Biden has signed. Look, it's Took them a whole month to do something, and this something I do not think is enough, because look, they knew what the Trump administration was doing since then. They knew what the GOP was doing since before then, since the Obama administration, when Biden was the vice president. Hell, the Democrats knew that the GOP was trying to overturn Roe versus Wade ever since Roe versus Wade was decided. They knew that the GOP was trying to overturn Roe versus Wade ever since the moral majority became a political force in this country. But what did the Democrats do to protect women's reproductive rights? Not a damn thing. All they did was fundraise off of the threat of right wing governance in this country. But they never actually governed themselves to counteract right wing governance and the rise of right wing power in this country. So, I mean, it's never too late to finally get a little bit of your act together with this executive order. It does not do enough. It does not go far enough. But I can tell you one thing about this executive order. It comes just in time for campaigns for the Democrats for the midterm elections. Believe me, y'all, that's what this is about. Because if protecting women's reproductive rights was a priority for the Democrats, they would have codified Roe versus Wade a long damn time ago. But because, just like any and every other people focused issues that are important to us, issues that we need to improve the quality of our lives, the standard of living for us, raising the minimum wage, ensuring affordable housing, assuring equal and equitable funding in public education, canceling student loan debt, providing free college education, all of those, universal health care, all of those things, protecting unions, all of those things that are important to us, protecting the environment so that we don't die from climate catastrophe, all of those things that are important to protecting human beings, those are not priorities for the Democrats until they are asking us for money and to vote for them. And then when people vote for them, they get in office and they make deals with the Republicans, because that's how the system is designed to work. And the Democrats are not ever going to change that system because they benefit from it. So women's rights, women's reproductive rights, also a pawn in the game of political chess that Democrats have been playing. But this time they're going to lose, because I don't think this executive order is going to save the Democrats from the well deserved reckoning that they are going to face in the midterms. I still believe they are going to lose the House, which they have a slim majority in the House of Representatives, and they're going to lose the Senate, which is Vice President Kamala Harris has the tie-breaking vote, which you notice she's never used. For Is it me? Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but Kamala Harris, I don't think has used her tie-breaking vote in the Senate for shit. Hmm. So that won't be a problem after November, because the Democrats won't have, they won't, she won't be the tie-breaking vote anymore. The Republicans will control the Senate after the midterms. And, I think the only thing that will stop that from coming true, the Republicans taking the House and the Senate in the midterms, is for Joseph Biden to, in the next, between now and November, cancel student loan debt, extend the eviction moratorium, um, not only expand the ACA, but put together a package for universal health care, protect unions, Punish companies for busting, because you can't do one without the other. You can't protect unions without punishing the corporations and the CEOs that actively retaliate against employees for union organizing. You can't keep letting these employers rather, off the hook for punishing employees for unionizing. Both of those things have to be done. Unions have to be protected, and corporations that penalize employees for unionizing, they need to be penalized. Biden needs to do all the things that people have been demanding that Biden do. The folks who are talking, oh, we're going to push Biden to the left and hold his feet to the fire. He needs to do all those things between now and November, and he ain't going to do it. So that's why the Democrats are going to lose the House and the Senate. Thank you so much, Martin Hernandez, with your $10 sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you for the show. I was in the Twin Cities when George Floyd was murdered. MPD are vicious, as are all cops. I'm in Cali now having breakfast while you are having lunch. Peace. I hope that I am a good accompaniment to your breakfast. Thank you so much for your support and for joining us. And I hope the weather in Cali is good. All right. So, yes, easy. Thank you. Let's go right there. The former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has just been assassinated. And I looked at this in the context of a larger kind of reckoning with the right wing, that I think is happening around the world. But let me take a little break, and because I see y'all have the comments, and I don't want to ignore your comments. I appreciate you. Yeah, Toby, Biden finally did something. And thank you. It's a reactive move instead of proactively protecting the people back when the Dems had the power to do it under Obama. And if people don't want to blame Obama, okay, how about under Clinton then? Because people were demanding that Roe v. Wade be codified. Come on. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Pamela, thank you. Thank you for, because I was like, is this it? I was reading it, and the executive order was like, is this it? This is just like, I think they could do more, but why? This is it. It's optics. It really is a midterm election PR stunt. Let's see. Okay, Kirinde, I say the Democrats as if they're homogenous. There's the party of white nationalism, and then there's everyone else who are not on the same page. Really? So if one party is the party of white nationalism, and I'm assuming you're talking about the GOP, and the other party is supposed to be the opposition party that is supposed to oppose what the party of white nationalism is and does, but they don't actually oppose the party of white nationalism in anything they actually do. What have the Democratic Party done? What have they done in opposing the GOP push to dismantle the Voting Rights Act? Not a damn thing. What has the Democratic Party done to oppose the GOP push that they have successfully done now to overturn Roe versus Wade? This bullshit executive order? When they had the power several times since Roe versus Wade was decided to actually codify and protect women's reproductive rights. Not a, they ain't done a damn thing but fundraise. What have what has the Democratic Party done to protect trans rights, gay rights, against the onslaught of the renewed attack by the party of white nationalists, the GOP, in dehumanizing and oppressing and marginalizing trans people, particularly children? Not a damn thing. DACA right now is being argued in an appellate court, I think, in Texas. Have you heard anybody in the Democratic Party saying anything about DACA, about that case being argued right now? Nothing. So when the opposition party doesn't actually do anything to oppose the white nationalist fascist right wing party, how in the world can you claim that they first are an opposition party, and that they two, that they are not in league or just like the opposition party, especially when they continue to make deals with the white nationalist fascist right wing party? How do you make deals with an enemy and you call yourself the opposition? So no, no, no. We're very clear, and this is, listen. This is not just Jacqueline Luqman making this condemnation of the Democratic Party. Take it up with W.E.B. Du Bois, who said the exact same thing about the Democratic Party in 1956. So we're still having these arguments with people defending the alleged party of the people that actually doesn't do anything for the people, hasn't done anything for the people, keeps not doing anything for the people, but some people keep defending them. You may, but I will not. I said what I said. All right, Ricky, thank you for pointing that out. And I think I'm kind of waiting until this ruling comes down in this court about DACA, but I'm talking about it next week. DACA is being argued because the Democrats did not put a safety net on it the last time they had a majority in the House and the Senate under Obama. Okay, so let's talk about Shinzo Abe and the right wing reckoning that I see happening around the country, and I'm going to start with Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson, he was a clownish figure that we in the United States um, enjoyed laughing at, because he was a spectacular, well, he still is a spectacularly unkempt human being. I do question his hygiene. I do. And I think he knows that my comrade and show host Sean Blackman is convinced that Boris Johnson's look is contrived, like he intends to look that disheveled and disgusting, because nobody can actually look as rumple still skinish as this guy actually does. And I don't know why they don't have a picture of him here. But oh yeah, there he is. Um, but so, it's been fun to make fun of his, professionally, spectacularly unkempt, a rumpled, still skin appearance. And yes, I did mean that, rumpled, still skin. But Boris Johnson was very much a right wing politician, head of the conservative Tory party in the UK that has been responsible for years of austerity, starting with that evil wench, Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan's best friend, Margaret Thatcher, the introductress of neoliberal policies in the UK, and the introductress of austerity programs that just crush the working class and the poor in the UK. But here are some of the things that Johnson is actually responsible for in the UK during his right wing reign, that caused even members of his own conservative party to resign because they hated him so much. So some of the stuff he did was he inappropriately asked the Queen to shut Parliament down for 5 weeks during the Brexit crisis, which legally she wasn't supposed to do. And the British Supreme Court ultimately ruled that it was illegal, which embarrassed the Queen, which you should not do in England. Then he backed Home Secretary Priti Patel. Excuse me. Yes, the same Priti Patel who just signed the extradition order for Julian Assange to be extradited back to the United States. Backed her in an investigation into her bullying her staff and treating them like shit. There is actually law in the ministerial code in the UK that you have to treat your employees with consideration and respect, and you cannot bully them. And she was found in violation of the ministerial code along those lines. But Johnson backed her, even though she was found to be a monster to her staff. He asked for a gift or a loan, but anyway, he asked Conservative Party donors to give him $280,000, about 200 British pounds, to renovate his Downing Street residence, which is a violation of some other ethics rules in the UK. And as a result, the Conservative Party was fined £17,800 by the Electoral Commission. He bullied his fellow Conservative Party members to try to overturn the suspension of an MP, Owen Patterson, who was suspended for 30 days himself for violating lobbying rules. And Patterson, he should have just served the 30 days because it was only 30 days. But no, Johnson wanted to have his way. He tried to bully the other Conservative MPs to vote against the suspension and overturn it. They refused to do it. And rather than just shut up and let that man serve that 30 days, then when the Conservative ministers in the Tory party wouldn't vote Johnson's way, then he publicly turns on Patterson. And Patterson gets pissed off and just quits. So what happened then? The Liberal Democrats ran a candidate who won Patterson's seat, and the Conservatives had held that seat for 200 years. So Boris Johnson and his bullshit lost the Conservative Tory party, a seat that they had held in Parliament for 200 years, to the Liberal Democrats. Then, of course, there was Partygate, all the parties that Johnson either threw or attended during the COVID lockdowns. And he said, first, no, there were no parties. And then, when there's evidence presented of the parties, well, I didn't know about the parties. And then when there's like, well, you were at the parties, like, okay, well, maybe I was at the parties, but I was only there because I thought they were work events. But the final straw seemed to have been, at least for the members of the Conservative Party, in having enough with this dude. Johnson's appointment of this person, Chris Pincher, to a position in government, because Chris Pincher had been accused of sexual misconduct many times, and Johnson knew about it. He was briefed on a previous incident before he appointed Pincher, and Pincher himself apparently texted Boris confirming that, yeah, maybe I might have groped two women at this restaurant because I was, pretty drunk. So as a result of all of these embarrassing scandals, and be clear that the reason the Tory party cut ties with Boris Johnson was because he embarrassed them, not because they didn't like his politics, mind you. The right-wing conservatives in Britain didn't want Boris Johnson as their party leader anymore because of the scandals that were embarrassing the party. They had no problem with his policies whatsoever. Because as far as his policies were concerned, they were cool with the fact that he introduced this thing called the Human Rights Act, which actually reduces human rights in the UK, and actually tried to supersede the European Court of Justice. He supported the removal of protest rights. He supported the removal of voting rights. He supported the British version of stop and frisk. and broken windows policing that, of course, leads to the kinds of shit there that happens here, except, beat police don't have guns, but people do get their asses beat. And let's face it, Brexit really is a disaster. But it's not a disaster because the Conservative Party didn't want it. It's a disaster because Boris Johnson pushed it through without the negotiations to hammer out some finer details that involved Ireland, Scotland, and a bunch of other things that now people are all pissed off about. So Johnson was not chucked out by the Conservative Party because they don't like his politics. He was chucked out by the Conservative Party because he's an embarrassing bore. And the Conservatives, he's a distraction to the agenda that he was pushing, but all of his other personal shit was getting in the way. Because here's the thing about Boris Johnson even being in power. The only reason he is in power was because he was chosen by the Conservative Party as the only person they thought could beat Jeremy Corbyn. This was actually admitted by one of the Conservative MPs just this week, who admitted that the reason they even chose Boris Johnson was because they were afraid that the government would be led by Jeremy Corbyn, whose labor movement was massive, and he would have won. So Corbyn became, if you don't remember, Jeremy Corbyn was the labor leader in 2015, ran on a campaign of for the many, not the few, promised to reverse the austerity that was introduced under the Conservative Party. He promised to nationalize public services to protect the NHS. Remember when Boris Johnson was trying to privatize the NHS? Promised to tax the rich. Then his 2017 campaign grew, and it was his 2017 campaign that led to Theresa May losing her parliamentary majority and resigning in 2019. So Boris Johnson was chosen by the Tory party to stop Jeremy Corbyn. That was the only reason he was chosen. So he is being done away with because it's expedient. Who will be replace who will replace Boris Johnson? I don't know. There will need to be another election in the UK. I am not even sure at this point whether the Labour Party is poised to step in and pick up where Corbyn left off because of the despicable smear campaign against Jeremy Corbyn that was waged from within the Labour Party because of the right leaning so called liberals in that party siding with the Zionists and trying to smear Corbyn as an anti Semite. Remember that? So, you know, politics in the UK is very interesting. The government is kind of in a shambles right now. I am not sure. That's a good question, Ricky. I don't know if Corbyn is still in the party. I'm talking to a couple of people to find out what is going on, what's going to happen, what is Jeremy Corbyn doing. I would love to see him make a comeback, but I'm just kind of feeling like the way he didn't fight back against that internal attack on him from within the Labor Party. I'm just like, man, don't have a Bernie Sanders spine. Don't do that. But we'll see. But I do think that the heavy-handedness and the brutality of right-wing governments is showing weakness. There are cracks in the foundation, and um, those cracks are coming from people powered movements, and just honestly, uh, the a multipolar order in the world emerging. The United States and the West, the United States and its allies are no longer the baddest bitches on the block. They're not. People around the world are no longer afraid of the United States, the US government, and its bottom bitch, the UK. they're just they're just not. So I'm very interested to see what happens in the UK. Easy D says they're talking about Emily Thornberry for Labor. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think I feel good about that at all, but we shall see. But so I was thinking about and I was thinking about Boris Johnson and the decades long right wing austerity government, austerity producing government of that the UK suffered under from the Tories when the news broke this morning that Shinzo Abe was assassinated. Because people don't know a lot about Japanese government. I admit that I don't know very much about Japanese government, but it is important to understand uh, Japanese government and who Shinzo Abe was, to understand why he fits in this global right wing reckoning that I think the people are causing around the world right now. Because, excuse me, Shinzo Abe, to say that he is the descendant of monsters, it's not an understatement. I didn't, people are going to make a big deal about the fact that his assassin used a handmade gun, that Japan has very strict gun laws, and they do. And yeah, okay, that's fine. But this is not, none of this is the story for me. What's important to know, I think, about Shinzo Abe's assassination, and they're showing, I think, the footage of just after it happened. Shinzo Abe was making a speech here at a train station for the political party that he used to lead, and that's the man who, sorry, oops, I think I stopped sharing prematurely there. I did, because they have a picture of the man who committed. Yes, that's the man who assassinated Shinzo Abe, and there's some other footage. Blah blah blah. Okay, here's what I think is important for us to understand about Shinzo Abe in the context of right wing governments, and the reckoning that they're facing um, from the people around the world. Uh, Abe was the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan, but the party it is neither liberal nor democratic. And I have to thank KJ No, a frequent guest on By Any Means Necessary, and activist for Veterans for Peace, for a lot of this information. But so Shinzo Abe was the longest serving prime minister of Japan, and he was actually an ultra right wing Japanese nationalist who wanted to remilitarize Japan. And he was part of the leadership of an ultra right wing organization called Nippon Kaiji. And their stated goal is the reconstruction of the Japanese empire. You know how people are always accusing Russia of trying to reconstitute the Russian Empire. Japan, they yeah. Abe he denied U.S. militarism. He denied the history of Japanese atrocities in World War II. He flat out denied the abuse of comfort women, who, if you're not familiar with comfort women, they were women from Korea, China, and other territories that Japan occupied in World War II, who they forced into sexual slavery to the Japanese military. Yeah. Abe even worships at something called a Yasukuni shrine, which is where Japanese war criminals are buried, not war heroes, war criminals are buried. So during his tenure as Prime Minister of Japan, Abe escalated tensions with North Korea, South Korea, China, Taiwan, everybody in the Pacific. And he enacted legislation in 2015 that allowed the Japanese to fight in foreign conflicts anywhere in the world alongside, guess who? The United States. So, surprise, surprise, uh, Shinzo Abe was a key enabler of the US China escalation in the Pacific. And he was actually the architect of the Quad Agreement between Japan, India, the United States, and Australia. So, under Shinzo Abe, Japan was basically a client state of the United States. And that was actually true long before Abe. But Japan has been the United States bulldog in the Pacific, and Abe's government was very much like the right wing governments in the UK, in Colombia, in Ecuador. Yeah, all, yes. Um, in fact, very interesting tidbit of history that I just learned today. Again, thanks to KJ No. The Liberal Democratic Party in Japan itself is an autocratic coalition of the Japanese business class, political class, and the Yakuza or the gangster class that was propped up and put in power by the Central Intelligence Agency after World War II. Yes, let me see how shocked y'all are because I did not know this. Did you all know that about the CIA propping up the political party in Japan? I did not know. Yes, they did. So after World War II, um, the CIA began their post-war operations. And take a wild guess as to why they did it. Take a wild guess. Guess why the CIA was involved in Japan after World War II. Come on. Come on. Guess. I'm waiting. Come on. Oh, come on now. Why is the CIA and the United States involved in any country to suppress leftist movements? The CIA was involved in absolutely, thank you. The CIA was involved in Japan after World War II to suppress the rise of socialism and communism in Japan, which was gaining headway. So instead of having a socialist or communist running Japan, the CIA propped up former war criminal Kodama Yoshio and chose, let's see, what's his name? Nobusuke Kishi as Japan's post war prime minister to suppress communist and socialist movements in the country. The thing is, though, Nobusuke Kishi was one of the worst war criminals of the 20th century and committed mass murders and enslaved the people of the Manchukuo province in Manchuria in northern China to fuel the Japanese war machine. Nobushi Kishi, by the way, is also Shinzo Abe's grandfather. So Shinzo Abe. Shinzo Abe literally is the descendant of war criminal monsters in Japan who the US through the CIA installed in power after World War II to stop the rise of socialist and communist movements in the country. So that is the connection between the assassination of Shinzo Abe and the reckoning that I think the people are bringing these right wing governments to around the world. Now, the man who assassinated Abe, let's see, his name is Tetsuya Yamagami. He's 41. He was a former Japanese Navy veteran. They're wondering if he is mentally fit because he's made some statements that doesn't make any sense. But I don't think we should look at this as just some random unhinged person who just happened to assassinate the ultra right wing leader in Japan who was campaigning for another ultra right wing leader to lead the ultra right wing party that is the bottom bitch of the U.S. the other bottom bitch of the U.S. in the Pacific. I think we'd be foolish to not pay attention to those connections. Ready Revolutionary says the U.S. left needs to focus more on the struggles throughout Asia beyond just China. There are many communist parties that we can learn from throughout the Pacific. Absolutely true. And I have to admit, because I am so interested in foreign policy and international, and I'm only interested in foreign policy because I am interested in international solidarity. There's so much about the red struggles in Pacific countries that I don't know, in Asian countries that I don't know about, that I need to learn a whole lot more about. But this is why we need solidarity so much, because we don't have to come to this knowledge by ourselves. We can be in solidarity with comrades who have this knowledge and can share it with us. And that's why that's how I got it, through a comrade, KJ No. So, whoo, yeah, Lord, y'all. And I want to touch on really quickly. Um, this, I think, is a part of, as we're talking about the reckoning that the people are forcing right wing governments around the world to deal with the people fairly if they are not outright getting rid of them, voting them out of power, as was done in Colombia. I cannot ignore what happened in Ecuador, where thousands of indigenous people shut the country down for 18 days over the government trying to impose, you know, rising a hike in gas prices, which would, of course, uh, uh, terribly affect the already poor indigenous people, peasant farmers. And who were the people who led that movement to shut that country down? It was the indigenous people and the peasant farmers from the mountains who came down to Quito, came down to Quito and for 18 days, excuse me, told the government, you ain't raising shit. Not only are you not going to raise shit, but you can do some other things that we demand. And what happened? The government relented and met the demands of the people. Excuse me. Woo, sorry, a little frog in my throat. So there are um, there is a shift going on, excuse me, globally around the world, where the governments, excuse me, where the governments that have been propped up by the US and the West to facilitate its imperialism and militarism and oppression in every corner of the globe, with through all of the commands. How many of there are there? Seven that the United States military monitors around the world. People, the United States military, the U.S. Department of Defense, and let me pull this up so I can get this right. The U.S. Department of Defense monitors every single corner of the world 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The United States military, through all of these commands, they have literally, just like the European nations met at a conference in Berlin in the 1880s and carved up Africa for themselves on a map, the United States military has carved up the world into these 11 commands, and they monitor the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with military installations of various sizes and purposes all around the globe through these 11 commands, including now space. That is what we mean when we anti imperialists say the full spectrum dominance of the US imperialist state. This is how they do it. They do it through these 11 military commands and the US intelligence apparatus propping up US and Western friendly governments in these countries to suppress opposition movements, which are always left movements. They're always socialist, communist, leftist movements, and always for the profit and benefit of the few capitalists who run all this shit, and to the detriment of the people while they're crushing people centered human rights underfoot. But the shift, this is wearing thin. People around the world are rising up against the full spectrum dominance of the United States, its imperialist machinations, and its allies. And I think that we are only seeing the beginning of the birth pangs of a new multipolar world order. I'm here for it. It is not going to be pretty. It is going to be, I don't think we should romanticize this period of time. I think it is going to be a time of deep and intense struggle. But it is a time of deep and intense struggle that we must enter into to get through to the other side of the multipolar world that upholds people centered human rights, that creates zones of peace, and that protects humanity and the earth for all of our benefit. And we're going to have to continue to defend what we win on the other side of that struggle, because, see, that's revolution too. We can't enter into a revolution and win what the people need and sit back on our laurels, because the right wing, our enemy, they will never stop. They will never stop trying to destroy what the people build in order for ourselves, in order for them to take it all back and profit even the more off of our misery and suffering. So, I hope this was a really enjoyable People's Power Lunch for you. I hope that the content was nutritious and that you enjoyed my company. I sure did enjoy you all's company. Let me see what you all have to say in the chat before we go. Zizwe, thank you so much for joining me. We must have an international coordinated struggle against imperialism. This is why we can't be narrow nationalists. Absolutely. Excuse me. Let's see. Kamari, The same global monitoring system is done here. Thank you. Thank you for making that connection. Thank you for bringing it back to the domestic. What we always talk about, we anti-imperialists always talk about with the United States government through the Department of Defense and these 11 commands monitoring the globe. It's the same thing is done to us domestically through Homeland Security, through the FBI, through all of these special programs that the FBI calls crime prevention programs, through coordinating with the police, surveillance programs, drone work, yeah, all of that. That's done to us domestically. Same beast, just domestically. Woo, Lord. Mm. That's right. Abe, there was a break in between Abe's leadership in Japan where a less right wing leader was elected. And he actually stopped an additional military base being built in Japan, which the US wanted to do. But then Abe came back into power and then let the United States keep the military bases in Japan and Okinawa. And yeah, so it's just so horrible. Okay, y'all. Listen, I don't know what you all are doing for this weekend, but I know for me, today I am finishing up the show with the live hour. We'll have Jaribu Hill for the live hour today, one of my favorite people in the world. Um, for the live hour on By Any Means Necessary. And today here in Washington D.C. at 5:30 there will be a vigil. I think sponsored by the National Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression for Jalen Walker at 5:30 p.m. And then, other than that, I'm going to do some gardening. I've got a paper to write for a symposium I'm on, and I'm going to catch some sun. But I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. I hope you had a great lunch with me. You all have a fantastic rest of your day, a wonderful weekend. And that's always a luta continua. The struggle continues. But Victoria acerta, victory is certain. Peace, people.